I gripped the wheel, heart pounding, hands shaking, watching Sarah and Tom leave the cafe. Her laugh, his arm, her lies about work and that new bank number hit hard. My mind reeled, betrayed. She didn't see me. I turned mid-breath, boots heavy, needing to trace how it all fell apart. I'm Jake, 34, married to Sarah for 6 years. Life's been pretty steady, or so I thought. We've got this routine down, me working construction, her at some office job she never shuts up about. Mornings I'm up at 6, brewing coffee while she sleeps in. By the time she's stumbling downstairs, I'm halfway out the door, tossing a "see ya" over my shoulder. Evenings, we're usually on the couch, me with a beer, her scrolling her phone, laughing at stuff she doesn't share. It's not perfect, but it's ours. At least, that's what I told myself. Sarah's always been loud, opinionated. She's got this way of filling a room, and I used to love that. She'd ramble about her coworkers, Michelle this, Kevin that, like I knew them. I'd nod along, happy she had her thing. We'd built something decent, I figured, a small house, no kids yet, plans for a dog maybe. I'd catch her smiling at me sometimes, and it felt real. Solid. Like we were good. But looking back, there were signs. Little things I didn't catch, or didn't want to. She'd come home late sometimes, saying, traffic, or last-minute meeting. I'd shrug it off, construction's unpredictable too, so who was I to judge? Her phone started staying face down on the counter, which was new. Once, I asked who she was texting so late, and she snapped. Just Michelle, chill out. Her tone was sharp, like I'd crossed a line. I let it go. Didn't want the fight. Then there were the weekends. She'd vanish for girls' brunches. That lasted hours, coming back smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. You don't wear that stuff. I'd think, but never said it out loud. She'd be all chatty after, deflecting with stories about spilled mimosas or whatever. I'd half listen, feeling this tiny itch in my gut, like something was off, but I couldn't pin it. She'd always been a talker, so maybe I was overthinking it. Marriage has its ebbs, right? Work kept me busy anyway. I'd be hauling lumber, joking with the guys, Mike and Dave mostly, about dumb stuff like fantasy football. Home was my reset. Sarah and I weren't lovey-dovey anymore, but we'd still cook together sometimes. Spaghetti nights were our thing. She'd stir the sauce, I'd handle the noodles. She'd tease me about overcooking them, and I'd laugh it off. Those moments felt like us. Like we still had something worth keeping. But the cracks kept showing. She'd dodge questions, like where she'd been when I called and got voicemail. Oh, phone died, she'd say, casual as anything. Her stories started feeling rehearsed, too polished. I'd ask about her day, and she'd rattle off the same vague crap. Busy, you know, the usual. It wasn't like her to be short with details. She loved oversharing. I'd catch her staring out the window sometimes, lost in thought, and when I'd ask what was up, she'd brush me off with a fake smile. Nothing, just tired. I bought it mostly. Didn't want to push. Then came the moment that stuck with me. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. I'm home early, kicking off my boots, when my phone rings, some lady from the bank. Hi, Mr. Thompson, just confirming Sarah's new phone number for the account, she says, all chipper. I freeze. New number? I ask, voice flat. Yeah, updated last week, thought you'd know, she chirps, reading it off. It's not Sarah's number. Not the one I've got saved, anyway. My stomach does this slow flip. Yeah, thanks, I mutter, hanging up. Sarah's not home yet, probably. At work. I sit there, staring at my phone, that number burning a hole in my head. Why didn't she tell me? What's she hiding? It's not panic yet, just this heavy, nagging feeling, like the ground's shifting under me, and I don't know why. I hear her car pull up outside, and I shove it down. Not ready to ask. Not yet. That bank call stuck with me. I couldn't shake it. Sarah's new number, one she didn't bother telling me about. I didn't bring it up that night. She came home all breezy, tossing her bag on the counter, going on about some annoying client at work. I nodded, same as always, but my head was somewhere else. Why hide a phone number? I kept replaying her excuses, late nights, dead batteries, and they started sounding thinner. I wasn't paranoid, not yet, but I wasn't blind either. Something was up, and I needed to figure it out. Next few days, I started paying attention. Not full-on detective mode, just noticing stuff. Sarah's phone was glued to her now, never left out like before. She'd take it to the bathroom, even for a quick shower. One morning, I'm sipping coffee, and she's texting away, smirking at the screen. "Who's that?" I asked, keeping it light. She didn't look up. "Michelle, she's freaking out about some deadline." Her voice was too smooth, like she'd practiced it. I didn't push, but Michelle's name was coming up a lot lately. Too much, maybe. Her schedule got weirder too. She'd leave early some days, saying she had meetings before work. Since when? Her job was 9 to 5, boring office stuff, or so she'd always said. I'd ask what the meeting was about, casual-like, and she'd wave it off. Just catching up with the team, no big deal. But her eyes wouldn't meet mine when she said it. Then there were the late nights, more of them. She'd roll in past 8, hair a little messy, claiming overtime. I'd smell that perfume again, faint but sharp, not hers. Long day? I'd say, testing her. Yeah, exhausting. She'd reply, already heading upstairs. No details, no nothing. I started keeping track, not on paper or anything, just in my head. Monday she was at Michelle's. Till 10. Wednesday, stuck at the office. Friday, she didn't even explain, just said she'd be late and bolted. The stories didn't add up. Michelle lived across town, why is Sarah there so much? And overtime? Her job wasn't that intense. I'd drive by her office once, after work, just curious. Lights off, parking lot empty. She wasn't there. My chest got tight, but I told myself maybe she'd left early. Maybe. Her attitude shifted too. She'd snap at me over dumb stuff, like if I forgot to take out the trash, she'd go off, all huffy, then storm out for air. She never used to care that much. Other times, she'd be too nice, like she was overcompensating. One night she made dinner, chicken and rice out of nowhere, and kept asking how my day was, all smiles. It felt forced, like she was playing a part. I ate, said it was good, but my mind was spinning. What's she covering for? I got nosy quiet about it though. Checked her coat pockets once while she was showering, found a receipt for coffee, dated last week, from a place she never mentioned. 2 drinks, 2 names scratched out. My hands got clammy holding it, but I shoved it back before she came down. Another time, I heard her on the phone, voice low, out on the porch. I cracked the window a bit, caught. Don't worry, he doesn't know. Before she hung up quick. My pulse jumped. Who's he? Me? Someone else? I didn't ask. Couldn't yet. The lies kept stacking. She'd say she was grabbing groceries, but come back with nothing, or just a random bag of chips like that's all she went for. I'd see her car parked funny in the driveway, like she'd rushed in. One night she claimed her phone died again, but I heard it buzz in her purse later. Thought it was dead, I said, keeping my tone flat. She froze for a split second, then laughed. Oh, must have charged it at work. Bull. I knew it, she knew I knew it, but she just kept talking, filling the silence with noise. Our life didn't feel like ours anymore. Spaghetti night stopped. She'd say she wasn't hungry or had eaten out. I'd sit on the couch alone, beer in hand, while she stayed upstairs, working on her laptop. The distance wasn't loud, no fights, no yelling, just this slow drift I couldn't stop. I'd lie awake after she fell asleep, staring at the ceiling, wondering who she was texting with that other number. What she was saying. Who she was saying it to. My gut screamed she was hiding something big, but I didn't have proof. Not solid proof. Just this mess of clues piling up, making our marriage feel like a house of cards I was too scared to knock over. I wasn't ready to face her. Not without knowing for sure. But the suspicion was eating me alive, turning every look she gave me into a question mark. I had to keep watching, waiting for her to slip up bigger. Because whatever she was doing, it wasn't just in my head anymore. The suspicion had been gnawing at me for weeks, but I didn't expect it to hit me like this. It was a Saturday, gray, rainy, the kind of day that keeps you inside. Sarah said she was meeting Michelle for lunch, same old story. She left around noon, hair done up, that perfume lingering behind her. I didn't buy it anymore. Not after the bank call, not after the half-truths piling up like dirty laundry. I'd been waiting for something solid, and that day, it landed right in my lap. I wasn't planning to snoop, not really. But I was home alone, restless, pacing the kitchen. Her laptop was on the counter, screen dark. She'd been careless lately, leaving it out instead of locking it in her bag like usual. I stared at it, hands in my pockets, feeling this pull I couldn't shake. My gut said look. My head said don't. Gut won. I tapped the spacebar, and it woke up, no password. She'd logged out of everything except her email. And there it was, staring me down, a bank alert, subject line. Account update confirmation. Dated 2 weeks back. I clicked it. It wasn't much, just a standard email confirming her new phone number, the one the bank lady had read off to me. But then I saw it. Secondary contact added, Thomas Reed. My chest tightened. Thomas Reed? Who's that? I didn't know any Thomas. My hands hovered over the keys, shaky, like I was about to step off a cliff. I scrolled her inbox, eyes darting for anything else. Nothing obvious, no love notes, no smoking gun. But that name stuck, buzzing in my skull like a wasp I couldn't swat. I closed the laptop, heart thumping, and sat there, staring at the wall. Thomas Reed. The perfume. The late nights. It was adding up, but I needed more. I grabbed my keys, no real plan, just moving on instinct. Her lunch spot with Michelle was always the same, some cafe downtown. I'd driven by it before, half curious, never stopping. This time I did. Rain streaked the windshield as I pulled into the lot across the street, scanning for her car. There it was, parked crooked, like she'd been in a hurry. I waited, slouched low, feeling like some creep in a movie. 10 minutes later, she walked out. She wasn't alone. Some guy, tall, dark hair, leather jacket, was with her, holding the door. They were laughing, heads close under an umbrella. My stomach dropped. I knew her laugh, that real one she hadn't given me in months. He said something, and she touched his arm, lingering. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. That was it. That was him. Thomas, I'd bet my life on it. They didn't see me, too wrapped up in each other. She leaned in, quick, like she was whispering, then they split to their cars. I didn't follow. Couldn't move. I drove home, rain hammering the roof, my head a mess. Thomas Reed. The new number. The bank tying them together. It wasn't just a hunch anymore, this was real. She'd added him to our account, or hers, or whatever she twisted it into. Why? How long? My mind raced, flipping through every lie she told me. Overtime that wasn't overtime. Michelle who wasn't Michelle. That coffee receipt for 2. It all clicked, sharp and ugly, like a puzzle I didn't want to finish. Back home, I sat in the dark living room, boots still on, replaying it. The way she'd looked at him, easy, alive, cut deeper than I expected. I'd been a fool, buying her stories, letting her play me. I thought about that email again. Secondary contact. That meant trust, right? More than a fling. She'd built something with him, something she'd hidden from me while I was out busting my back to keep us going. My throat burned, but I didn't cry. Just sat there, numb, letting it sink in. She got home an hour later, all casual. Dropped her keys, kicked off her shoes, said, "Michelle says hi." Like it was nothing. I nodded, staring at the TV, off, blank. She didn't notice. Went upstairs, humming, like she hadn't just torn my world apart. I stayed put, alone with it. No yelling, no smashing stuff, just me and the truth, heavy as a brick. I kept seeing her hand on his arm, that laugh, looping in my head. How long had she been lying? Months? Years? I didn't know, and that was the worst part. I didn't sleep that night. Lay next to her, eyes open, her breathing steady while mine felt shallow. She smelled like him, faint, but there. I wanted to shake her, demand answers, but what was the point? She'd lie again, twist it, make me the bad guy. I'd seen enough. The bank, the cafe, the guy, Thomas Reed. It was over, even if she didn't know it yet. My life with her, the one I'd believed in, was gone. All I had left was figuring out what to do with the pieces. After that day at the cafe, everything changed, but only for me. Sarah kept on like nothing happened, spinning her web of lies while I watched it unravel in my head. She'd come home, all chipper, tossing out, "How was your day?" like we were still some happy couple. I'd grunt a reply, barely looking at her. Inside I was done. The woman I married was gone, or maybe she'd never been real. Either way, I wasn't playing along anymore. She didn't notice the shift, or didn't care. Kept up her routine, late nights, Michelle, excuses, that fake smile when she'd breeze in. I'd see her texting on that new number, probably to Tom, and my stomach would twist. But I didn't call her out. What was there to say? She'd just lie more, and I was tired of hearing it. Instead, I started pulling back, slow and quiet, building a wall she couldn't see. First thing I changed was my time. Work became my excuse. Told her I had extra shifts, longer hours. It wasn't a total lie. I'd hang back with Mike and Dave, shooting the breeze over a soda, anything to stay out later. When I'd get home, she'd already be upstairs, working, or asleep. Fine by me. The less I saw her, the less I had to fake it. I'd crash on the couch most nights, claiming my back hurt. She'd shrug, say, "Suit yourself." And that was that. No questions, no pushback. Almost like she wanted the space too. Our old habits died off fast. No more spaghetti nights, no more sitting together. I'd cook for myself, grilled cheese, whatever, while she'd grab takeout or eat out. She'd ramble about her day sometimes, dropping Michelle's name like a shield, but I stopped listening. Just nodded, eyes on my plate. She'd trail off eventually, sensing I wasn't biting. One night, she tried that overnice act again, brought home cupcakes, said, "Thought you'd like these." I took one, mumbled thanks, and left it at that. She frowned, but didn't push. Good. I wasn't hungry for her guilt trips. I started planning, too, not loud, not obvious. Checked our bank stuff online, separate from that account she'd messed with. My paycheck was still mine, mostly. I opened a new savings account, small deposits at first, just enough to have something when I walked. Didn't tell her. Didn't need to. She'd added Tom to her life, let him deal with her mess. I dug through bills, figured out what was joint, what I could cut loose. It felt cold, calculating, but it steadied me. Gave me a grip on something when everything else was slipping. Living with her got surreal. She'd act like we were fine, laughing at some show, asking if I'd seen her keys, while I'd sit there, detached, seeing Tom's face every time she opened her mouth. That perfume would hit me sometimes, faint on her jacket, and I'd clench my jaw, saying nothing. She was oblivious, or pretending to be. One evening, she plopped next to me on the couch, scrolling her phone, and said, "We should do something fun soon." I stared at her, this stranger I'd shared a bed with, and muttered, "Yeah, maybe." She didn't catch the ice in my voice. Kept scrolling, texting, living her lie. The pain was still there, sharp some days, dull others. I'd catch myself wondering how long she'd been with him. Months, a year? More? It'd hit me at random, driving to work, pouring coffee, and I'd feel this hollow ache. But I didn't let it swallow me. I'd seen her with Tom, seen the proof in that email. No going back. I wasn't mad anymore, not in a loud way. Just tired. Tired of her, of us, of pretending I didn't know. Resolve took over instead, slow, steady, like a train picking up speed. I was leaving. Soon. She kept lying, right to the end. Came home late one night, said. Traffic was nuts. Even though I'd driven the same route earlier, clear as anything. I didn't call her bluff. Just nodded, grabbed my beer, and headed to the garage. Fixed up an old chair I'd been meaning to sand down, letting the noise drown her out. She didn't follow. Probably relieved I didn't ask questions. That was her mistake, thinking I was still clueless, still hers to string along. I wasn't. Not anymore. By then, I had a plan. A buddy, Dave, had a spare room, nothing fancy, but it'd do. I'd move out quiet, no big scene. Sarah could keep the house, the lies, Tom, all of it. I just wanted out. Every day, I felt stronger, clearer, like I was waking up from a bad dream. She'd built her world without me, and I was ready to build mine without her. The hurt lingered, sure, but it wasn't holding me back. Not anymore. It was time. I'd been coasting on fumes, living in that house with Sarah like a ghost, watching her lie through her teeth day after day. No more. One Thursday, I packed a bag, clothes, toothbrush, a couple photos of my folks. Nothing fancy, just what I needed. Dave had the spare room ready, said I could crash as long as I wanted. I didn't tell Sarah I was going. Didn't see the point. She figured it out when she saw my stuff gone. That morning, she left early, some meeting again, probably with Tom. I waited till her car peeled out, then got to work. Loaded my truck, kept it quiet. The house felt weirdly still, like it knew I was done too. I left my key on the counter, no note. She didn't deserve an explanation, she'd had months to come clean and hadn't. I locked the door behind me, climbed in the truck, and drove off. Didn't look back. Dave's place was a small apartment, cluttered but homey. He handed me a beer, said, "Welcome to freedom." And that was that. I dropped my bag in the corner, sank into his lumpy couch, and let it hit me. I was out. No more dodging her excuses, no more pretending. My chest felt lighter, even if my head was still a mess. I'd done it. Walked away from her and her lies, clean break. Sarah texted later that night. "Where are you? Saw your stuff's gone." No panic, just flat, like she was asking about the weather. I didn't reply. She called once, left a voicemail I didn't listen to. Didn't need to. She'd probably spin some story, act confused, maybe mad, but it wouldn't change anything. I blocked her number, the old one and that new one from the bank. Done. Her voice, her games, all of it, cut off. She didn't matter anymore. First few days were strange. I'd wake up, half expecting her next to me, then remember I was free. Dave kept me busy, work, takeout, dumb action movies. I started sleeping better, no lying awake wondering who she was texting. The hurt was still there, this quiet bruise I couldn't shake. How do you unlove someone you gave 6 years to? But it wasn't crushing me. It was just, there, fading slow. I got practical quick. Filed for divorce a week later, kept it simple, no lawyers yet. Split what we had, let her keep the house. I didn't want it, didn't want anything tying me back. Found a cheap rental nearby, signed the lease with cash from that savings account I'd started. It was small, bare, but mine. First night there, I sat on the floor, no furniture yet, eating pizza, staring at the walls. Felt weird but good. Like a blank slate. Sarah faded to the edges. Heard through Mike she was still with Tom, living her life like I'd never been part of it. Didn't surprise me. She'd always been good at rewriting things. Probably told herself I was the problem, not her lies. I didn't care what she thought anymore. Her reaction, or lack of it, was hers to deal with. I was out of reach. Looking back, it's a blur, those years with her, the slow rot I didn't see coming. That bank call, catching her with Tom, it all feels distant now, like a story that happened to someone else. I'm not sure what's next. Work steady, I've got Dave and the guys, maybe I'll get that dog I always talked about. There's this quiet hope creeping in, mixed with the uncertainty. I'm not whole yet, too many pieces got chipped away, but I'm free. Her lies, her betrayal, they're behind me, shrinking in the distance. I don't know where I'm headed, but it's somewhere new, and that's enough for now. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the story. And subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. See you soon.